Hi. Today I'm very, very excited to introduce Nicole Yershon. Nicole's the founder and CEO of the NY Collective. She was Wired Magazine's top 100 in their first annual survey of Britain's digital power brokers. And having set up and led Ogilvy Labs for a number of years, Nicole went on to be a best-selling author with her book Rough Diamond, Turning Disruption into Advantage in Business and Life. And just a few of the clients she's worked with over recent years are Danone, Havas, Amex, IBM, to name but a few. Nicole's one of the drum's 25 women who shaped the digital industry in the last 25 years. She's a maverick, an inspiration, and the original Rough Diamond, an executor, a coach, a super connector, and a great mate, alongside being an Amazon #1 best-selling author. So I'm very, very proud to have Nicole here with us today to talk about turning disruption into advantage. Over to you, Nicole.
Wow, thank you. It says I'm an executor. That doesn't mean I chop people's heads off or anything like that. But I do get shit done. Am I allowed to swear in this, or is it going to be edited? I don't know. And I'll try not to. I'll try to be well behaved as much as I can. We're going to have slides with this, and hello everyone, and thank you so much for your time and your patience in having me be part of this, because I know that we've got kind of short attention spans and our bandwidths are going in the opposite way to our waistlines, so I'll kind of keep this short and sweet. I think slides will come over the top of me speaking, so hopefully you can see my first slide, which has got all those little dots and all the different things that I've been doing. And if you're looking at the first thing along the top, it says I've run the traffic department. The traffic department within an ad agency in the 80s was all about making sure that everything runs smoothly. Everything happens on time, everyone sees it, everyone signs it off, it doesn't go over budget, gets on air on time, and it doesn't have a blank space in a magazine. So that was obviously in the 80s before digital, and it was quite an intense time, and I was working with Dave Trott at Gold Greenleaf's Trott at that time. And the foundational kind of like fundamental to execution of an agency at that time was just keeping the wheels turning, and every day is an act of creation. And it's about making something happen from literally nothing at times. And if we take a kind of a look at creativity as another example, it's just making things, it isn't just making things look nicer. That's not creativity. That's what Edward de Bono would call styling. There are lots of people calling themselves creative who are merely stylists. Dave Trott said a really lovely thing about me on a blog post where he talks about we don't need any more thinkers, we need more doers. He says that Nicole Yershon, being me, is genuinely creative, makes stuff happen, often from nothing. Or as Winston Churchill said, we have no money, we have to think. There's also the Innovation Lab, which is on there, which is something that I started at Ogilvy from nothing. There was no budget. There was, it was just a kind of an idea that we would look at a landscape of all these amazing things that were happening: gaming, mobile, social, AR, VR, big data, behavior change, and no one really knew anything about those things. So the lab was instrumental in making sure that it was bringing that outside world into an organization that ordinarily was doing traditional marketing, TV, press, and posters. And we kind of executed media programs and brought creativity to the darkest reaches of most corporations, and developed cutting edge diversity and inclusion programs. It was called the Rough Diamond, and that was taking kids age 14 to 16, bringing them into Ogilvy, and rather than just having them do a week with us and then saying like, bye, have a nice life, we showed them what their potential could be, and then we worked with them all the way through the Rough Diamond program until they then finished Ravensbourne, which is the university that we partnered with, and School Communication Arts. And we worked with them until they then came into Ogilvy, and we made up job titles for them. So we have 10 years worth of amazing case studies, which are the people within that diversity program. And we started a global network of expertise and innovation and theme-based semesters on all of the things that I talked about that we didn't know anything about. And I would see 10 to 15 different companies every single week with, say, streaming or whatever the semester was. And then we would attach it to business and we would make something happen within that semester. So it would give us a case study of doing a live stream for Ford that went to 22,000 desktops in 19 countries in 5 languages, when at the time the TV department said, oh no, we only do TV. And it was down to us in the labs to say not anymore. As it was looking at new business models, again, moving them away from just always doing the traditional. And we built kind of fearless events and attended unconventional conventions and spotted ideas and built relationships and partnerships well before they were mainstream. So we were looking at really interesting companies in the very early days that are now truly successful. But that's because it's long-term planning. It's not a short-term initiative when you're looking to do innovation within organizations. And I've given keynote speeches all over the world and mentored and coached and ran projects. And yes, I've also written an Amazon bestseller. So we now come to let's talk about the dots, which is quite an interesting slide, really, because there's a guy who I was listening to, and he really did touch a nerve. His name's Vikram Mancharamani, and he said there's so much great stuff out there, and there's experts generating fabulous dots. The concern now is the scarcity of people or systems who can connect them, the exponential value of integrated thinking across them. So it's very hard for finance people to measure the value of connections and connecting dots, but it is something like with soft costs, where, you know, soft skills, it's something that is really going to kind of rear its head. And that for me is such an incredible quote, because it talks about a super connector, and it's Elon Musk also defines it as an expert generalist, a joiner of the correct dots in a time of increasing specialisms. So I don't know about streaming or gaming or mobile or all those different things, or affiliate marketing, but I do know someone who knows way more than me, and it's connecting those people and building those partnerships to then make something amazing happen. When someone turns around and says, I've got this weird idea, and most people wouldn't know how to execute it. Whereas I have spent 20 years working with companies doing interesting things to then pull the best in breed together to execute on those ideas. And we go into the next slide where we're talking about maps being crucial, but you need the navigator, the kind of like the fearless driver and the practical sense maker as the map changes in front of you. And this just talks about how Elon Musk defines an expert generalist, and they are people that they don't have one specialism. They actually, because they're so curious, they find interesting things happening all across the board. Like someone just has to mention something to me that they're working on something, and then by osmosis, almost, I just keep running into people or things or reading things that are about that particular topic. So it's amazing once your antenna is up and looking at the different things to connect. You can almost kind of feel it in your brain, like the sparks going off when someone mentions something, and you think, oh my gosh, I've just met someone or seen someone or seen something or read something that is exactly that. So curiosity and the ability to connect is quite important. And if we go to kind of the next slide, which is talking about disruptive dots, I kind of feel that every challenge is an opportunity and every opportunity is a challenge. That's because we have to deal with this constant influx. It's an entangled mess. It's life-threatening if you can't create a way to think about it properly. And you know, especially with COVID, where no one knows what's the outcome, no one knows what's going to happen. You are living in a moment, and humans need new tools and frameworks to help us through this chaos. it kind of comes more naturally to me, maybe because of my various skills and you know what I've been doing over the years. But you have to know how to wrestle each part, either by yourself or by, as I mentioned before, assembling the right team. And the one guarantee about the future is that nothing is guaranteed, and I'm fine with that. But I find a lot of people in education especially, it's educated out of you to be fine with that. When I was looking for my rough diamonds, it came about because Ogilvy were always hiring white middle class Oxford educated, and there was one answer, and it was the end of the book. And I wanted someone to say, well, what about this and what about that, and have you tried this and have you tried that, and to constantly test and learn. And that didn't work. Oh, okay, that's then registered, and what can I do to try something else? So that's for me the definition of disruption. So the only strategy is kind of turning disruption into an advantage. It's when the shit hits the fan that we're able to work out an alternative way forward, because otherwise what are you going to do? You're just going to stand still. But it's uncomfortable, and you don't want that to happen. And we wish that it never did happen, but it did happen. And that is what life is like. All these things are happening all the time, whether it be death or COVID, or the lab has been closed down, or divorce, or all of these things are disruptive. And it's how you kind of get over that is really important. So I've kind of got a few lessons, you know, no fear. So dots need connecting, and you've got to cultivate a sense-making superpower. And I think that superpower is curiosity. I look for that with many kind of rough diamonds or people who have similar values to me, I guess. It's that curiosity of maybe there's another way, or who else has done it, or I've read something that could work. Determination and practice. So we're constantly in that field of testing and learning, because you just got to try it, because you just don't know. And that's kind of how I've always been I had a reputation of being the fixer. You know, if you want something done, ask a busy person, and they would give it to me because I would try another way. I wouldn't know what to do. It wasn't that it was, you know, formulaic, but I wouldn't be frightened to try it. And I think that kind of no fear, which is the next slide, dots need connecting, cultivate a sense making superpower, curiosity, determination, practice. And if you lack experience in any topic, you have to channel that lack of experience into getting experienced. So it's uncomfortable, you know, in the early days where I'd go to something and I knew no one and I knew nothing. So I don't know much about affiliate marketing. But if I had to do something that involved affiliate marketing, I would blitz it. I would do like I used to do those semesters, I would do a semester on affiliate marketing, and what does it mean, and who are the players, and is it good, bad, indifferent, and what works and what doesn't. That's how I would get experienced, and it would feel uncomfortable because I know nothing about it. But I'll get myself comfortable just by asking the right questions and what feels right to me. And if you lack the determination, then it's going to take a long time for most people to make up your mind if whether you're going to waste your time in getting to know these things. But I always find that it's never a waste of time learning. It will always pop up somewhere a year later, 4 years later, where you'll remember, if you're a super connector, you'll remember when you met that person or saw that thing, and you'll connect it at the right time. Because kind of timing is everything. And if you're like me, where you lack patience, and I really do. I mean, COVID has been unbelievable in teaching me patience. Then you've got to channel that impatience into appearing patient, and that takes practice. So I'm constantly trying to kind of be fine with being patient and not constantly move on to the next thing. And once you can connect all those kind of dots, you can turn it into your advantage. And it takes courage and belligerent behavior at times, attitude, mischief, knowing when to smile, knowing when to take things slowly. You know, these have all been lessons in my life over the years as to how I've learned to move forward with things that aren't naturally my comfort zone. Someone said to me once, she said, we really need to take you out of your comfort zone. And I said, I'm always out of my comfort zone. I go to places, I know no one, I know nothing. She said, yes, that's your comfort zone, which was very interesting. So I need out of my comfort zone at that time was patience, empathy. Not everyone is like me, being, more empathetic and understanding. And that was, and obviously life getting in the way with some shit hitting the fan, that makes you really empathize and understand what people are going through. They're all needed, all of those skills. I mentioned before about soft skills. It's not necessarily just about making money all the time. There's understanding people and purpose and planet that now needs to kind of be brought into the mix. So I'm going to leave you with the Fearless Manifesto with a slide that I've given to you, but it's also in my book, Rough Diamond, which talks about all of my experiences, turning disruption into advantage in business and life, problems I've encountered, solutions I've put in place. But I didn't know any of those at the time. I just literally felt my way around them, and brought along some really interesting people who have similar values. You kind of find them in your area, in your workplace. There'll be some that are really kind of excited to want to know what's next, and there'll be some that are happy to just do the day job. And it's just finding those people, and you move along with your Fearless Manifesto, which is be curious, develop your curiosity and get interested, get experiences. So you can only do that by testing and learning and making progress. Define what really matters in each and every situation. Brutal honesty, and that's always being truthful to yourself and to others, literally always, because if someone can't trust you, then they don't know whether they want to come on the journey with you. If they trust you, then they're like, they know that you have their back and you're all in it together, and there's no hierarchical system. You're just all trying to get to the same place together. Clarity, so kind of get to the point. That's my kind of thing. I learned that from Dave Trott many years ago, and the companies that I worked with before Ogilvy. Get to the point, always ask why, again and again, why and how come and who said. They're all the traits that get you expelled from school, or they're the traits that your organizations say, just shut up, sit down, I don't want to hear from you, for the next 2 hours at a meeting. But if you can't help yourself to keep questioning why, then this kind of job of disruption is in your genes. Be mindful, knowledge is not always your friend, so stay open-minded, because what you knew yesterday is maybe not going to take you into tomorrow. And make stuff and ship it out and never stop. There's no off switch. It's, if you're curious, it's kind of always on. So to develop the fearlessness, as I said, there's a few kind of takeaway points. Creativity is not a job title. It's the reason that something good has happened. Disruption isn't some current jargon, although obviously people talk about it constantly. It's what happens every minute of the day. I talked to you about that with life disruption. Knowledge isn't a good thing. Experience and learning from it is good. Knowledge is what happened, and that's no guarantee that it's going to ever happen again. People will always say no to you until you've got smart enough to kind of make that impossible. I never kind of registered the word no. Someone, when I was doing the Rough Diamond program, the CEO at the time said, no, I don't want you to develop that program. It's not your role within the labs. I totally disagreed. I went under the radar for 2 years and did it anyway, so that I could showcase what it was rather than just show a PowerPoint for someone to say no. I actually went and made it and showed how it worked. And if you want something done and you can't find someone smarter at doing it than you, then just keep looking. They're definitely out there. It's a big world out there. And when you find them, learn everything you can from them. And in the meantime, just keep moving forward. Hopefully I've kind of given you a few little gems and understanding into my brain. So I want to say thank you very much for listening to me and giving me your time. And I think we're going to hand over to some Q&A with Natasha.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That was, as ever, enlightening, inspiring. You know, you talk about sparks flying. I never leave a conversation with you feeling, you know, down in the dumps or kind of muted or not knowing where to turn. And I always come away sort of feeling enlivened and, you know, and excited about what the future holds. And I know, you know, everyone's been sort of struggling through the last, you know, sort of a few weeks and months. It's not been an easy time, and you know, and indeed life would be dull, wouldn't it, if there weren't sort of challenges that were thrown up at us. And I know with the world slowing down, and you've talked about patience, and the courage you've had to kind of, you know, find in yourself. I know I've learned how resilient I am, and my need to be productive. Certainly, you know, I hit a wall very early in lockdown, and had to really kind of change, you know, the way, you know, my perspective of what being productive meant. And I created a mantra for myself around, you know, collaboration and creativity. And I know we spoke very early in lockdown about that, but what's been your experience of kind of increased, you know, creativity, collaboration, curiosity, which you threw in there as well, during the last, you know, the last kind of few months?
Yeah, it's kind of been mixed. I mean, there have been some great examples of both and some epic fails. But the same common denominator as in real life really is great people, great content equals great creativity and collaboration. But I kind of mentioned that it requires empathy and maturity of a mindset and trusted space, and some people and personalities just don't like to be out of their comfort zone, and they say they want to be creative or they want to be innovative or we need a head of innovation, but that involves way more than just saying those words.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you've given us some fantastic advice. You know, so thank you for that, for sharing that. Webgains has a core value around never stop learning, which I personally share. It's like that stick of rock, isn't it? Kind of goes through all of us, and it's an organisation that I feel very kind of, you know, connected with. I think because of that ethos, and it's something I know you and I have spoken about a lot. But you know, in terms of how we prepare for the future, what further advice could you give to us?
Well, I mean, who knows? But be as prepared as you possibly can. Kind of, as I mentioned, knowledge can be your enemy. It's what you knew. It's not what you need to know for the future. So rather than that mindset and being very kind of stuck in the mud of, you know, you always knew that, it might not be right for future. So being kind of open-minded, being curious about things outside of your day job, because the day job's going to be different tomorrow. Be honest with yourself and everyone around you, and that creates trust, and trust only comes from belief. Stay learning and learn what it takes to learn and to think and reflect, and be patient as the penny drops, probably later than you think. You're constantly having lessons that maybe you learn the year previously with someone, and that then because of timing it now can be brought into effect maybe a year later. There was a really great quote from Yuval Harari from his book 21 Lessons of the 21st Century. He says, the best advice I can give a 15-year-old is don't rely on the adults too much. Most of them mean well, but they just don't understand the world. So I think that's also like another good bit of advice, is that sometimes we just don't know, but we need to be brave enough and honest enough to say, I don't know, but I know someone who does. So not bullshit your way through these things. So that's kind of my advice for preparedness.
Yeah, I think that's such sound advice. And I think when you're young, you look at your parents, don't you, and you think they know everything, and they don't. And I think you're right, just trying to instill that that sense of curiosity and that ethos that it's okay to question. It's all right to ask why, or to put your hand up and say, I don't understand, I think is so vital, you know, to everyone of all generations, you know, whether that's, you know, in your personal life or indeed at work.
I remember in the very early days when I was implementing systems at Ogilvy, it was proper business transformation, digital business transformation, workflow system, finance system, digital asset management system, digitizing all their archives going back to the 50s, getting rid of tapes, getting rid of couriers. And I was working with the IT departments at the time, because we were then working on systems that I then had to implement and move away from, you know, paper and moving it from an analog to a digital world. And I remember the IT department used to call me the thick user, because I would ask the questions that no one else in the meetings would ask, because I just didn't understand it. And if I was implementing it, and if I went a certain way, then everyone else would go a certain way. And they used to call me the thick user. And I wear it as a badge of honor. For me, it's like the early days of UX, you know, user experience, because I was, I guess, fearless enough, or more understanding that if I couldn't use it, then no one else could, and it would just be a white elephant stuck in the corner. So best to just speak up and just say what everyone's thinking. But that does take courage. So, you know, it's not an easy thing to kind of raise your hand and say, I don't get it.
No, absolutely. And good for you for doing that. But I know you, when you were at Ogilvy, and I was, you know, M&C Saatchi back in the day, and you know, those you know, crazy sort of days of ad agency life, and when digital kind of happened, and you touched on this in your talk, that you know, no one really understood, you know, where it sat in the mix. You know, it was a bolt-on. It was, you know, part of, you know, well, we'll do the big TV ad, and then you can have some assets and create some stuff that might go online. And I think, you know, if we look at where we were then and where we are now in terms of the marketing landscape, and looking at affiliate marketing, you know, and how that's kind of grown, you know, and become, you know, much more, you know, the whole concept of performance marketing. And I know you and I were never scared of the data. It was always kind of alarming to me that we created all this data, but nobody ever challenged, you know, nobody questioned it, and we're still, you know, worlds away from where we could be. And that's an exciting journey to go on. But in that world of data and performance, where does creativity now fit in the marketing landscape? What do you see as the future of marketing?
I think creativity is everywhere, but it depends on the definition of creativity. To me, it's everything that humans can do to solve problems. It's like when I was, you know, asked to put in the innovation lab, it was, let's do a lab, but there's no money for you to do it. So I had to be creative in finding another way. I think it's a lot of the time confused with the label of an art director or a copywriter or an agency person. While that's often the case, I believe creativity can come from the post room, or a cab driver, or from a rough diamond. And like, from my experience, it's to be open-minded, that it can literally come from anywhere, because it's solving a problem of, I've got this weird idea and I wonder if, and let's just try. And there'll be some people that will say no, and there'll be others like me, and the role that I played with the lab was, well, let's see if maybe we can work something out, go to the right people, see if we can make it happen. So for me, that's creativity. Wherever you are, affiliate marketing, agencies, creative industries, that's for me what creativity is.
Amazing. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I could speak to you for forever, Nicole, and I know we'll continue this conversation, I'm sure. Or I hope anyway. You know, for me, business is all about people. You know, and I, you know, you're someone that I will always want to be kind of in my tribe. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and thank you so much for joining us at Webgains Transform 2020.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thanks.